Hey, what's going on, everybody? Boilon here, back for another video on Raid Shadow Legends. And in today's video, I want to talk about ways that you can make easy progression on your account through some ways that I've been spending my energy, but something that's often overlooked, right? There's a lot of ways that you can spend your energy in Raid Shadow Legends and a lot of dungeons in Raid Shadow Legends as well. So I want to talk more specifically about one that you can make a lot of easy progress on early on in the game, and why this one is the most important one to focus on if you want to make some more meaningful progress in your roster to get yourself powered up. We're going to be talking about all that and more in today's video. And before we get started with the rest of the video, I do want to remind people that if you haven't started an account on Raid Shadow Legends yet, then you can download the game using the QR code in the top right hand of the screen, or using the link in the description down below to get yourself a free Epic Rector draft alongside some other freebie resources which you'll use. Also, by account level 15, you will get yourself this Ugo, who is one of the best epic characters in Raid Shadow Legends. I am using them every single day on my roster, so don't delay, and they'll definitely help you out in your start. Now, if you're early on in Raid Shadow Legends, then maybe like me, you might have been a little bit overwhelmed with all of the choices on the dungeon map, because believe me, there are, believe you and me, there are a lot of them. Not all of them are open right away, but it can quickly become a little bit overwhelming as to what to focus on and what not to. And just, in case you're new here, let's just do a quick brief overview. Of course, over here in this kind of field, the 5 here, you do have the potion keep. So these are going to be for your ascension or your purple stars, depending on how you call them, with the arcane keep always being open and the other ones rotating on different days of the week. So you got the spirit keep, the magic keep, the force keep, and the void keep. Now, the Iron Twins Fortress is something related to the Altar of Souls, aka I call them red stars, which is available later on. And that's not something that we're going to be focusing on here in today's video. But for a lot of the gear-based dungeons, you have your Ice Golem's Peak, you have your Spider's Den, which is fairly difficult, I would say, for the early game, especially if you don't have a lot of characters available, the Dragon's Lair, and the Fire Knight's Castle. The majority of your gear is going to be coming from one of these three, essentially, with the Spider's Den being for accessories. We do currently have the event dungeon going on right now for a little bit longer. That does allow you to farm. It's honestly, I think it's a little bit challenging too. I'm not able to make the same amount of stage progress on this one as I am, say, the Dragon's Lair, which is what we're going to be focusing on here in today's video. But this one does have a wider range of gear that you can farm and accessories too. It's also quicker to clear. So as you can see here on stage 13, I've actually, my best time is 11 seconds. And the Minotaur's Labyrinth, we'll be discussing this in another video. But I want to talk about the Dragon's Lair specifically, because this is the one that I've made the most progress on in my account. So as you can see here, I've actually recently started farming stage 20. Now, we're not going to talk necessarily about stage 20, but I'm nowhere near this on my other dungeons. And that's because the mechanics of the dragon's fight is a lot more simplistic than it is on the other ones. And you, to some degree, you can brute force this, so you don't necessarily need a specific team in order to beat this, at least to get to the higher levels. Now, I'm not going to be talking about, obviously, things like hard mode in this. Now, two things that I want to point out is there's some kind of thresholds or inflection points, I guess, where it's better to farm certain stages more than others. And depending on where you're at, you can kind of see how the star ranks of the gears upgrade as you go through the stages. And one thing that I really want to point out here is going to be stages 10. This is going to be quite important for you to push towards early on. Now, I don't like 10 because it's force with the red, so you're fighting a red dragon. A lot of my damage-based characters are blue, and so for that reason, I actually prefer to farm stage 11 because it's green, and I find that my clear times are way faster. Now, I haven't done this in a while, but stage 11 I find just a little bit easier than stage 10, but this is going to vary depending on what characters you're using and what affinities they are, for example. But yeah, either stage 10 or 11 is probably the most efficient, I would say, in the earlier game to farm, and you're going to get 4 to 5 star gear. Now, once you get to about stage 13 is when you can unlock 4 to 6 gear. So obviously, Once you're able to do that, it would make more sense to either through stage 13 or, if you can, stage 15, because again, it's a green. So depending on your affinity and which is easier for you, make sure you're aware of that. And then the big jump from there then is stage 20, because then you're eliminating the 4-star gear and you're starting to farm 5 and 6 star gear. And this is where I'm currently putting a lot of my bonus energy into that I'm not using for the day, because I need to get to farming like 6-star gear now. I'm at the point where, I basically sold off the majority of my 4-star gear and I'm focusing on the fives and the sixes. So you're slowly going to make your improvement, but where you're going to make the most improvement is here in the Dragon's Lair. And you're probably wondering, Boilon, there's only specific sets here in the Dragon's Lair, which is why they have the other dungeons, why they have Ice Golem's Peak, and why they have Fire Knight's Castle. You can see the different sets that are available here and that, and you can see here that I'm basically on stage 14/15. Like, that's where I'm at about Ice Golem's Peak versus 20 on Dragon's Lair. Fire Knight's Castle is pretty similar. They both have a lot more challenging mechanics, in my opinion. Both Fire Knight and Ice Golem are harder as far as specific characters that you kind of need to tailor around the bosses, and they just hit harder too. And Dragon's Lair is not that more difficult. Now, the second thing that I want to bring up before we actually dive into the Dragon's boss, I want to talk about my gearing method. Now, there's this saying in Raid Shadow Legends, and it rings true: stats over sets. Now, what does that mean? You may have heard about that, maybe you haven't. And for this, I'm going to remove the QR code very briefly here. And I want to talk about some character that I geared recently, which I guess let's Geomancer, maybe? No, Rector Drath. So Rector Drath has, now, if you can get the sets, that's great, but it's not the priority here. The priority here is making sure that you have actually good pieces that you're using in those positions, not necessarily aiming for a set bonus. I'm trying to find a character that I have like that's really all over the place that I don't like Apothecary. So I recently geared him up, and you're looking at, he has 2 sets that I managed to pull together, which is not even relevant to the character. So I have like a crit chance, a set piece here, and then I have a 2-piece resilience. But you can also see that I'm using a 1 piece of a shield relentless and one of these 6-star avenging weapons. And why am I doing that? Is because the raw stats that are available on these items are significantly better than what I would do trying to maintain some sort of set bonus and have less stats overall. So that's something that I really want to point out, and why the star rank and the actual stats on the piece are of the utmost importance. So speed boots, by the way, main stat speed is just so important. But you can see here that I've been equipping this stuff because they're 6-star epic pieces, but not really has to do with the sets. They just happen to have good stats on the pieces, and that's why I'm using them. So being able to farm a more broader, a broader range of gear is really going to help you. And what I mean by that is I mean just better gear pieces at a higher star rank, which is why we're going to be focusing on the Dragon's Lair in today's video here, and not the Ice Golem and Fire Knight's Castle, because I think that this is just the easiest one that new players can farm. And we're going to dive a little bit into the boss and why the mechanics of this are a little bit easier. All right, and here we are in Dragon's Lair. I've just been autoing a little bit here in the early waves. And what I want to kind of share with you guys is these are all characters that I basically, more or less, had from the beginning of my Raid Shadow Legends journey. So Rector Drath and Ugo here on the left are characters that you would pick up, perhaps, if you downloaded using the QR code, which I need to put back on the screen, actually, here. And so those 2 characters are available if you download through that, if you haven't already. And Alice is also a free legendary champion that you get through the game, and Kale, right? So these 4 are my starting characters, with Apothecary the only rare and also not that difficult to get, but the only character that you basically might not have from the start. And why is this important? Is because, like, it's not that hard. Dragon's not that hard. We're gonna find out really quickly here. His main mechanic here, honestly, is you're gonna find out that he goes into, like, I guess like a dragon breath stance where you need to do enough damage on the top of this. He's about to do it here in a second. And that's pretty much it. Like, he does do some debuff, yeah, like that, right? So you have to get through his purple bar, which is like, it's still a health bar. It's just if you don't do enough damage, he does end up stunning you. But a lot of the debuffs that he does isn't even that important. Like, I could let that hit me and I would still survive. So as long as you have the support to get through this, he does put some debuffs out. I think you're going to see this here in a second. He's going to do a breath. He does a mixture of poison here, weaken, poison, and some offense down, I believe, as well on his basic swipe. but none of these are really all that debilitating that stops you from getting to the boss. If you get to the boss with 5 characters intact and have like 1 or 2 support characters, honestly, that should be enough. Like he doesn't do enough damage. he's I know that I've only been playing for like a month and I can farm 5 to 6 star gear. So nothing of what he does is super debilitating enough that's going to stop you from killing him. And so that's the point, is that even if you were to let his breath attack go off, which I mean, I don't think I'm gonna. And yeah, right here. So it's not even a shield, right? The purple bar is not even a shield. It's just a health bar. Even if you let that go off, if you have decent support characters, you'd be able to get through this, not a problem. So I mean, one of the easiest bosses to get through. And why, if you listen to what I said earlier about stats over sets, we're going to take a look. Is any of this very good? HP percent. I mean, ideally I'm looking for epic gear pieces, because epic pieces have 3 different available stats at the beginning. Some speed boots would be also nice, but I'm also kind of hunting 6-star gear. And this is the only. Oh, you know what? I clicked on the wrong one. My bad. I was supposed to hit stage 20 and I hit stage 19. So that's totally my bad. Uh, oops. But that's what I've been spending my spare energy on, because I need to farm more 6-star gear. And so your goal, I think, in the early game, and especially within, the first month for sure, if you're not able to get more gear, this is going to be your best place to do that, because I think it's the easiest one to farm, because the mechanics are very simple of the boss fight, and why you're going to be able to climb this much faster than any of the other dungeons, and why I think that this is a priority for the early game. There's some other things that are obviously important to use your energy on. The potion keys, which we talked about at the beginning of the videos. Minotaur's Labyrinth, we're going to speak about in a separate video, because I think masteries are very important, at least for your top characters, and we're going to talk about the nuances of that in another one. But I'd be curious what your thoughts are in the comments down below when it comes to Dragon's Lair. Again, Fire Knight's Castle and Ice Golem Peak, it's not that they're bad, it's just that they need a more required specialized team in order to get through this, whereas Dragon's Lair is a lot easier to brute force down, depending on what you have available to you. That's just my thoughts anyways. Let me know what yours are in the comments down below. And don't forget, if you haven't started playing Raid Shadow Legends yet, then make sure that you download using the QR code in the top right hand of the screen to get yourself a free Epic Rector Drath. Also, by account level 15, you will get yourself a free Ugo as well, one of the best epics in the game. Also, don't forget that you can use the promo code Monkey King to get yourself a free legendary Sun Wukong. We're not done yet. Also, there is Alice the Wanderer for a free 7-day logging calendar that you'll get at the end of that. So 2 free legendary champions, 2 free epic champions. This is the best time to start Raid. And if you like this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and you'll be greatly helping out the channel. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys on the next one.